What's up, how you doing? Here we are. I'm going to show you my pins on my jacket there. I'm a big fan of pins, good quality ones. Got the Lighthouse ones here, and I'm going to leave those on. But we start off with the movie Grease. Big fan of that movie. Saw that when I was little. The pregnancy scene, or the rumors of pregnancy with that Rizzo, that went over my head. Had no idea. I just thought it was a movie about a bunch of high schoolers, with their car, having a good time. That's what I thought. And it kind of was, but there it is. Grease pin. Then we have, love the electric guitar. Love that instrument. Joe Bonamassa. Get that. When I was a kid, there was a little store that sold records, and they also sold these, and I would collect them. Then we have, in the playing cards, the Suicide King. Although right here he's not pointing it at himself, but you can see that. Hold it this way. Right there, Suicide King. Then, for years and years and years, I've been looking for the U.S. Navy anchor pin. And when I was a kid, there was a Navy veteran, World War II Navy veteran, and he had a bunch of these, and he gave me, not exactly this, but close. He gave me a couple when I was a kid. Those actually had numbers on them, like 5 years, 10 years, 15. But I'm a fan of the Navy anchor. Yeah, if I could show you that. Love it. I like anchors anyway, but the U.S. Navy one, big fan of. Partridge Family pin. Love that show. Love that bus, Mr. Kincaid. So, Partridge Family. I don't know if it's focusing good. I dropped it. Then, when I was a kid, Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid ruled, especially in the summertime. Running around all day. Somebody would make Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid would bust down the wall in your neighborhood. Get that Kool-Aid. The light. About right there. Kool-Aid. There, that's better, right? No? You get the idea. Not so much now, but back in those days, Kool-Aid was popular. Saturday morning cartoons, they had like 20, 30 cartoons with Kool-Aid. And then, 1981, MTV, when they actually played music. Get that. MTV. Used to watch that all the time. But back then they actually played videos based on the music that we liked. Now it's shows, which I stopped watching when they became a reality show network. Reality show network. So, I have a bunch of them now. But I love the guitar. Electric guitar. I like all guitars, acoustic, electric. Yep. Sometimes I see those guys at Disneyland. They have like a jean vest, and they have every possible, well, not every, but they have tons and tons of Disneyland or Disney World or Disney pins everywhere. You name it. I mean, I have a bunch of those too, but not as many as them. I mean, I could have as many, but I don't buy one each time I go. I used to say, every time I come here, I'm going to buy one pin. And then I stopped doing that after, like, I don't know, after 15 times. So I've been there many times cubed. But after a certain point, I don't know, I would look at the pins and I would say, I don't like that, I don't like that, I have that, I have that, I have that one, I have that one. And I stopped buying them. But now maybe because it's been many years, maybe I'll start buying them again. But I have tons and tons of Disney pins. I like them. I like collecting these things. The good ones, not the cheesy ones. You know, some people, they get the cheap ones. I don't like the cheap ones. Yeah, when I was a kid, we knew somebody who owned, they still own it, a factory that makes these things. But they specialized, I think, in certain music groups like the Grateful Dead. They specialize in the NFL and those kind of pins. And when I was a kid, I would get, every so often, they'd bring me a pin of a helmet from an NFL team or a ruler. Back then they had rulers too that they would make. So, but you know, I ended up getting a bunch of those and I never wore them. You know why? Because I'm not a big football fan. Not a big football fan. I love basketball, boxing number one. I love the challenge one-on-one, you know, any kind of combat sport I enjoy watching. Baseball, you know, every once in a while I may be in the mood, but it's in a, you know, in a 10 year span of time, maybe I'll see a few games. I remember one time I got into this habit of walking at night, a little exercise, and on the way back there was a field and there would be an amateur team playing, or a couple of teams obviously, and I would stop there in the summertime. There'd be maybe like 10 people there watching, and I would find a little bench there and I'd watch for 40 minutes or so, 45, I don't know. And it was very relaxing, very relaxing. A couple of applause every now and then you'd hear in the background. But the field was near my house. And that field very important to me because when I was a kid, I spent endless hours playing there, you know, and on the other side of that field, there was railroad tracks, which are still there to this day. That whole system was built during the Civil War. Very old line. And when I was in the first, second, and third grade, every single day after school, we'd stop there, me and my two other friends that were into that stuff, and we'd play for like an hour, and then we'd go home. I guess we did that so much that my mother, who was home, my father was at work, but my mother, who was at home, thought that was the normal time that I would get home from school. So she never said, wait a minute, you get off at 2:10, it's 3:30 now. Where were you? I didn't get any of that because I would have ignored it. It would have been like, you talking about? But we would spend at least an hour every single day after school at the railroad tracks. And to this day, because of that, I have a connection to the railroad system. Trains, freight trains, public transportation trains. I have spent my life, when I was younger, riding all of those things. Not so much the freight trains. The freight trains I would just watch from the outside. But public transportation trains, like the subway system, I was all over the place. I'm sure there were people back then that worked in the train system that would see me and say, oh, there's that kid again running, you know. But I spent a lot of time riding the subway. Constantly. I'm still a fan of the subway. I wish one day they would turn off the third rail and allow me to explore the entire system. You know, I did though, when they build a new line, I did go in there and I walked exclusively on the third rail, but it was off. They had to switch opposition. I was always thinking, now that I'm on it, balancing, I was always thinking, watch them say, let's test out the third rail, flip the switch on. Now, I don't know if you have to be touching something to make a ground in order for the electricity to go through you. I think if you're just walking on it and you're already on it, I think you're fine. I don't want to test it, but I think you are fine. It's just like the whole concept of if you jump off a building and grab onto an electrical wire and your feet are not touching the ground, I think you're okay. So, yeah, big subway guy. And I like buses too. For a while, I was on the Greyhound bus all the time going somewhere. Greyhound bus, local buses, I was always on those. Matter of fact, when I was a kid, I think I was like 15 years old, I was looking at the buses back then. They were the brand new ones that came out. And I was saying to myself, when I get older, I'm going to buy one of these used but good condition. I'm going to take out, like 50% of the seats. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of beds, a couple of couches, and then I'm going to go and do cross-country trips with this big bus. Because to me, I would sit there and watch, the bus driver with the big wheel. And those were the first buses that came out that had power steering. The ones before that came out in the late 60s or mid 60s, GMC ones, those had manual steering. And I would see the bus drivers struggling. And then all of a sudden, they had these other buses, the ones that had one window out, one window in the front. They had those buses, and they had power steering, power brakes. So, I'm sure a lot of people that couldn't handle the manual steering ended up getting a job after. They said, those got power steering? I'm in. But I loved those buses. They were huge. I felt like I was going into a house. That's how big they were. And I enjoyed the coin machine. You put coins in there. And I had a bus driver. 8th grade, I would take the bus home. And the school was quite far. And there was a lot of people at that stop. It was the first stop. So you get 20 people coming on, putting their change, and that bus driver would allow it to build up, and then he would get on and hit the switch. All the change would dump into the counter, and then you'd hear for the next 15 minutes, it would count the money, and I loved that. Matter of fact, if I ever find one exactly like that, I'm gonna buy it and keep it next to my bed at nighttime. If I ever have insomnia, I'm going to dump quarters in there and have it count and put me to sleep. Very relaxing sound. So yeah, that's what happened back then. I was a big public transportation guy, but I especially loved the subway system. Loved the subway system, man. That was a whole Saturday for me. I'd plan it out. And I'd make pit stops along the way, for a little snack here, donut, and then I'd stop at Burger King and get something there, and then I'd continue. And I'd go far. Nobody knew it back then, but I would go far. I remember one time I was all the way, on the other side of town, and I go, if they ever needed me, they would never find me here. Anyway. That's it for now. Ciao. Grease is the word. Come on, focus. Right there.